Hello, welcome, folks. We're just gonna get a little minute to get everyone in and settled. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, everyone's got a nice cool drink, cup of tea, whatever one needs at this time during the day. I think we're having a backstage Ben coming in entrance. He's going to be making, oh, here he is. Ben, I was like, I think you're making your magical entrance. I should have got my drum roll ready. Welcome, Ben. How are you?
I'm wonderful. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. And welcome to everyone online as well. These are the sessions that we bring the biggest, the smartest, the most energizing minds together to really kind of figure out what's going on in this new world of AI. And we're really, really fortunate to have Ben with us. So, Ben is the head of AI and modern data strategy at AWS. And a little bit of back context, we hosted together, Reejig and AWS hosted like 50 leaders together in New York, and we were working through some of the biggest problems when it comes to like trying to figure out what to do with AI, how to think about, redesigning AI workflows. And I got to see Ben speak, and I made my team very quickly make a beeline for him because it was such an energizing room. He got everybody up and going, got them so excited, and also took away the nerves, which you typically see with a lot of folks when it comes to AI. So we really were so appreciative for Ben to agree to come and do this live with everyone. So Ben, thank you so much for coming here live to talk with everyone, and I'm really excited about this conversation.
You're so very welcome. I had so much fun the last time we were together, and I wouldn't miss the second chance.
I love it. I love it. So, one of the things I think a lot of people are a little bit sort of unsure of is, and you get to have this lens that not many folks in the world get to have. What is actually happening around AI strategy? When companies and you get to sit right at the forefront of not only building, but talking to all the leading, customers in the world. Like, where are we actually at? What's happening? Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? What's going on?
You know what? The typical consulting answer, it depends. It depends on where folks are in their assessment of this technology. We at AWS certainly believe this to be a transformational technology that's going to impact every industry and potentially every role. Has some potential to take advantage of AI. And what I've seen and what we see is probably three different buckets, right? Logically speaking, you have some folks that are still in the foundation building bucket
Hmm.
that maybe haven't even gone to the cloud yet, right? And so there's a
Yeah,
fair number of traditional industry that hasn't done that. I think Andy Jassy says it's somewhere between 15 and 20% of the workloads are in the cloud. So that leaves a lot of
that's mental.
of legacy, if you will. If you
Yeah.
think about it, there's lots of companies that aren't startups like yours that have this legacy and sometimes baggage holding them back. There's another group that's been actively, testing and learning as fast as they can, and then you have, I'd say that the smaller of the three, probably let's call it 10 to 15%, that are running ahead, right? Many
Hmm.
startups who, like yours, that are ahead of the curve, that see the opportunity, don't have the baggage and are able to be more nimble. And that's
Hmm.
probably only, again, 10 to 15% of what we see. But the conversations, again, depending on what bucket you're in,
Yeah.
are very rich. There's a lot of curiosity, and there's a lot of fear associated with the conversation, depending on who you're
Hmm.
talking to and what. And so those are the three groups. And again, I think everybody has an opportunity right now. It's just a matter of meeting people where they are and then figuring out a plan on how to go forward, ideally as fast as possible.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things that we've talked about with your team more broadly is like, I want to build a $1 billion company with under 100 people. I want to test that, right? I
Yeah.
want to see, is it actually possible?
Is it
And
possible?
to be fair, in your world, what you've just said, like the big enterprises that are already pre-established that have been operating for 4 years, for them to kind of go backwards and like reinvent, it's a lot harder than someone like me who's day zero,
Yes.
whiteboard, like what could we do and how could we build everything from scratch? So like that makes like a really fair, point of view of like actually where everyone's at. The other thing I find, and I'm not a technical founder, but I've built an AI company, right? And I
Yeah.
think that there is this really interesting moment where at the beginning, this AI moment was very much so about technical folks. And now what we're starting to see is this kind of like democratization where normal people like me are starting to actually embrace and understand what's possible. And I think the work that we're doing alongside your team is like really opening my mind to like, hold on a second, someone like me can build something like this, that this is truly possible in this day and age. And that part of this movement, I think, is so exciting,
You're
right?
just you're describing what I like very much about AI is the empowerment
Hmm.
that it can give people. I believe this tool, and it certainly works for me, and I shared in some of my slides when we were together, right? It's allowed me to tap into my creativity. It's allowing you to do things that you don't have the technical skills and experience writing C and code and so forth, but you can actually put things together and move your ideas forward or start to visualize your ideas in new and different ways. And that to me is, again, for everybody listening, that's why people are so excited, right?
Yep. Agree.
It's what can we as the humans do with the new toy or tool to help us be more effective, more efficient at serving or doing or making our lives easier, whatever it is, whatever task we're trying to accomplish. Can we use the new tools in ways to help us do more? And in your case, right, without having to necessarily scale up the headcount.
Yep. And I think in this new era of work, like we at Reejig truly believe that this opportunity belongs to builders. And the definition of a builder is not an engineer. A
Yes,
builder
that has
is like
changed.
me, is you, is like anybody. And that for us, that is so exciting. And I
Yeah.
think that's to your point. I think one, boards look at this and kind of think, oh my God, this is an amazing opportunity to accelerate and amplify business. But I think the message that I really kind of try and focus on with folks that spend a lot of time talking to me about the fear part that you mentioned
Yes.
is that like if we could turn that fear into like this culture of opportunity, and if I can, and we can teach normal everyday people like me to be able to harness and amplify themselves with AI, like this is going to change everything in terms of like how work gets done.
Yeah, and that's been our goal just internally as we use it. We want every employee to be more productive with the tools, right? And if you have that mental model and you have a culture where people have the freedom to learn, they're expected to learn and use new tools and to continue to sharpen their skills. Like these are I have zero doubts. These are skills that everybody needs to acquire, right?
Yeah.
Because they're new tools, and if you figure out how to use the new tools, you're going to be more effective and efficient. But
Hmm.
I will say this, right? We, the human race, right? That change isn't something we all look forward to, and many resist. But I think it's as an opportunity. So that growth mindset and having some curiosity. But I think as leaders too, and we talked about this earlier, right? This is a leadership moment, right? Like this is a big leadership moment where you have to set a direction and a vision for your company, an expectation for your people. And if you do that, right, you can make the culture change that may be required. You're creating a culture in your company, and some larger organizations have a culture maybe that's been codified by
Hmm.
process, by paper, by, we've always done it this way. And those are the ones that are going to struggle the most adapting to changing expectations. And that
Hmm.
really, I think you've commented and you just mentioned, right? Our ability, anybody's ability to be more creative and to build has just been like the barrier to entry is just almost eliminated because you can write English words and start to see things that are backed by code, right? But
Yeah.
you didn't have to write any. And that's a very new and powerful thing. And I mean, vibe coding's only existed for 12 months, right? It's
Hmm.
still very, very new. But it's incredibly exciting to be able to get business people who are not engineers to visualize, experience possible solutions to their problems, and to accelerate that solutioning, right? And that's really what I'm most excited about is AI helps speed up that process. And it means we'll be able to solve more problems faster.
Yeah. One of the things that we have seen, and don't know if sort of your view on this, but when the whole AI moment started, everyone bought tools and said to all their employees, now go and do this. And then everyone was expecting that like productivity would go off the charts and nothing really kind of like happened. And everyone's view was, oh, okay, this whole thing is not working. And my take on that is like, well, one, no one has a clue how to use this thing. We haven't actually enabled these folks to do it. And also, like, if you're in a rowing boat and everyone is allowed to row in a different direction, you don't really go far, right?
No,
So you actually have this
get around in a circle.
anti-velocity, which is like the whole promise of AI is velocity. And if we do that, so a lot of what we talk about is, and my brain's thinking about this because your point about the leadership is really important. Like the leadership expectation right now that you're not just going to throw out, ChatGPT or Copilot across the business and expect suddenly the business to redesign work and actually make AI workflows and have everybody kind of doing things in different patterns. That doesn't work. What are you seeing kind of similar themes to that are kind of big no-goes that folks need to kind of watch out for? That, what have you seen over your travels when you're talking to leaders that like things they got wrong that they kind of wish they didn't spend millions of dollars on if they knew how to do it in a different way? Like, what have you seen around leadership?
You know what? It's interesting. I think just rolling it out. I talked to some companies and I'm like, what's your AI strategy, or more importantly, what's your business strategy that's AI enabled? Is a better way to say it. I'll be a little controversial being the head of AI business development that I don't think you should have a just an AI strategy because that
Hmm.
often gets delegated to the IT team to go deal with that. And if companies treat AI as just any other IT project, it will not meet expectations. Um, the other thing too I'd like to say is I believe everyone, even if you roll out the tools you mentioned or any tool, I think every person, without any training whatsoever, can get some incremental benefit.
Hmm.
Your ability to measure that, we can debate, right? But everybody can write better emails. Everybody can ask it to summarize a document. Most people are using it to summarize meetings. I love not having to take meeting notes anymore. Those are all AI tools. People are using them and getting a great deal, I would argue, of benefit from that. And so that to us, that's incremental, right? And back to there is value. Are you measuring it well or effective or efficient? Perhaps not, but you're still getting value. And I don't know that that's actually deniable. But
Hmm.
but are you transforming your business, which is a very different set of expectations, which does require you to rethink work or how people work. Or I joke a little bit that if you use AI to automate a process that doesn't need to exist, you really are wasting time, right? Like this. I mean, we have our big user conference, right, which was in the beginning of December, and it's called reInvent, very appropriately named for what we're talking about today. Is this is the opportunity to reinvent how your company works, how it organizes, because most who aren't a startup have a legacy,
Yep.
have come together, and you want to make matters worse, many out there have been a part of a merger and an acquisition. Now you take two sets of problems and you double it, right? Because you have two different ways of doing things. You have two of everything that has to get sorted through. I've been through many, and it's complicated, right?
Hmm.
And if you don't simplify, you don't get those synergies, you don't get those efficiencies, you don't get the progress that you had hoped. And we have a leadership principle inside of Amazon that's invent and simplify, and we're amazing at invent. Like we love to innovate. We have tons of builders that think that way, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves that it says and simplify
Yeah.
because it's the simplify part that's actually harder than inventing something new to solve a problem. So
Yep.
simplifying something that's complex, and as soon as you start getting, more than probably two handfuls of employees, as you can attest, things start to get more complex.
Yep. It
And,
does.
and they do for everyone, right? And so
Yeah.
The folks that get things wrong don't have a vision, don't have clear metrics to know whether it's working or not. But I do think everyone right now should be in learning mode. And so no matter how you're going about it, you should be learning, right? And so there is some benefit. It just may not be as tangible or quantifiable. But right now, everybody, if I can implore anyone listening, like you should be using these tools on a regular basis to learn what they're good at, what you can get better at, and sometimes what they're not good at, right? Knowing what they're not good at is just as valuable as the things it can help you with.
Yeah, it's a really good point because the part that you were saying is like just because you can invent it doesn't mean you should. We had a little bit of that in our company, like and in the scheme of our we work with the top big enterprises, right? But when you think about even just as a use case, I put a lot of pressure into my team. Like we've got to drink our own champagne and actually design our ways of working. And what we find was like just sprawl of like everybody trying.
Yeah,
And what we ended up doing was if we can't measure that this is actually bringing some value to the business, then we shut it down.
stop.
And one of the things, and I don't have the exact stats, but I'm going to text you after this. So I did ask my CTO. We moved, I think we moved and transitioned over to Bedrock. And we can,
Congratulations, by the way.
thank you. We actually looked at the team of what we would have hired to do the thing that we're now doing on this, and it would already be at a team of 10 people.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll send you
Amazing.
it after because it's a really, really interesting use case because of the way that we're designing what we're doing. And I think that's where I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
anytime you ever have a doubt, if you measure how it happened before and how it happens after the fact, and if you can then start to see like true outcome shifts within your business or true value that is connected to revenue, then I think like I'm like, okay, double down, like keep going, team, like keep more of that, more of that. But there is this kind of like, constant like triaging of like yes yo yes no and like tidying up shutting down and like that we're really good at inventing and have lots of great ideas as a team too, and right now we're in like we're going to scale this thing really fast right now, so discipline is like super important. And I feel like a lot of our customers are big global enterprises. They have to have that like work happens in a certain pattern because it's always being done, and if you come in and stick a spanner in that you're going to cause that big problem. So you can kind of feel where a lot of our customers, shared customers, are at right now on their journey of like, do we dabble over here or do we truly start thinking about reinvention?
And those big companies, right? They have those processes in place because they've had to scale things, right? They've standardized so that they get a repeatable outcome, right? Like that, like all the whole mental model still is valid. It just doesn't, it's not very easy to adapt, right? And that's really where the struggle is. And that's really where
Hmm.
these tools can potentially help. Is finding, and I think I've told you this in the past, right? Looking for areas of your business where you spend a lot of time, right? Like where is it time? And if you can find places where you spend a lot of time and see if AI, can help reduce the amount of time it takes to do something, that's
Hmm.
great, right? You get instant benefit, you save time, right? Like you mentioned, you're building more with fewer developers because you've changed your process. The challenge for most is then what do you do with the time you saved? Right? And that's the metric again that most aren't measuring. But ideally, it's I'm able to see more customers, or I'm able to,
Yeah.
do the next feature faster, or I'm able to, reduce the number of meetings I have that are internal, and now, focus more on external, value added things. So, and that's really again when I say leadership moment, it's great to have these tools, but we as leaders actually have to change. We have to know what they can do and the potential, but then we have to start changing expectations, right?
Hmm.
And that's the hard part, right?
Hmm.
You can give somebody a tool, and if you go, all right, last year you did 10, now I need you to do 100. Um, Humans, us, we're gonna have an allergic reaction to that. Even if we have the tool and know the tool can help us do it, we're still gonna have a human reaction to our boss or our leadership saying, you now have to do 10x. And that is that leadership moment where we have to bring people along, and that's where there's learning and building their confidence so that that adjustment isn't so visceral or
Yeah.
such an allergic reaction. Because if anything, you want them to go, no, I can do more, give me more, give me more. Like That's
And then pay me
culture.
for
Yeah, well, yeah,
it.
exactly right. Exactly right.
Because that's the next thing, right? It's like if you turn the whole world into builders, and if everyone's like 100x, it kind of defeats. And this is one thing at Reejig that we're trying to figure out, that we're like, in a world where we do build $1 billion company with 100 people, how does it completely structurally change how reward works?
Yes.
Right. Like, and this is like I don't know how to answer that, trying to figure it out thing, but it's going
Right.
to be really interesting to see how does work shift, and how does the social contract of work change in a world where like truly AI starts to happen. And we're like super focused. One of the things that you said, which was really interesting because it's validating something that we've been talking about with customers. So we go into a lot of customers and very large global enterprises, and they've done these kind of performance theater of like AI. So they've brought in consultants, done these big things, haven't really moved the needle on a lot, like small pockets of stuff. But what we're starting to see with customers is that when we actually looked at like what actually were you doing, that a lot of it wasn't really connected to actual things that bring the business value.
Sure.
So, like, we kind of say to customers, like, you need a mental motive. Like, think of it as like a decision making support where if does this task and workflow help you make more money? Does it help you like remove low value work that costs you money?
Right.
Does it help you avoid risk, which costs you money?
Yep.
Does it remove no joy work from your people? And like again, that's linked to money, because if your people stay longer because you make it a happier place to work, you
Right.
save money. So a
Yep.
lot of what we're kind of pushing customers to say is like, we're not going to go after everything. We're going
Yeah.
to be really strategic, and we got to make sure that anything we chase has to fit into one of those buckets.
Good.
The one thing that we're doing with other customers, so one of our customers is really obsessed with being the most creative company in the world,
Wow.
and they believe that will help them make more money. So now we're actually defining like what tasks and workflows are connected to creativity. So think
Sure.
of like creating new products, like just more innovation, and like can we prove? So everything that you're saying is really validating the model that we're seeing with customers, that at the leadership level, if we can help make good decisions on where do they go, but then we have to measure the outcome shift. So if you've got salespeople that need to book 5 meetings a week, you want to see them book 7.
Yes. I love that you're saying that. If I really hope we can stop using the term proof of concept,
Yep.
and it truly should be proof of value.
Yep.
To your point, what value do we think this is going to create, and then can we put a test in place to see that yes, it does. But then you said something earlier too about scale, which is really important, right? Because you can do something in the lab that looks good, but then when you roll it out, it doesn't quite work like it did in the lab, right? And then therefore, it doesn't actually solve the problem that you were trying to solve in the first place. So you've got to make sure that your proofs are grounded in reality. Like, do you have access to the data that AI is going to need to do
Hmm.
not just the test set of data, but actually all the data that you're going to need. But proving value, I think grounding and working backwards, as we call it, that's what our mechanism is here at AWS. Working backwards from the problem or the value proposition is it should be your why, right? Like
Yep.
you have to have a why. And I think you alluded to this and stated like just giving everybody the tool and seeing what happens. Something's going to happen, right? But it won't be orchestrated or organized. I do think you need to help build people's confidence and empower to go like here, like we want you to think about like you know your job better than anybody else,
Hmm.
right? Like, so use these tools to figure out how you can do your job better, right? Like, versus a top down or a centralized, we're going to do all the innovation over here, and then we're going to roll that innovation out to everyone. I
Hmm.
think it's a little bit of both, right? Like, you need some center of excellence that's really able to go deep and make sure that the things you're building are secure, are scalable, are going to hold up to the test of time. And if you're in a regulatory environment or have to deal with payments or anything like that, you stay compliant and out of jail. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
But
Save
but
the
then
legal fees.
but, but you don't also want to say, all right, like you don't, and I'll say this to everyone, right? Like if you don't provide the tools to your people, they will start using this to do
Yeah.
their.
100%. They
They will.
screenshot it. They'll
They,
screenshot.
your
Yep,
data is flying out of your
totally.
organization if you haven't given them the tools. And so I think this is an important, again, leadership moment where you need a feedback loop to learn from each other. We have something called, and there are several podcasts on like how I AI, right? And we have
Yep.
meetings where we just share. And here's the crazy thing. I've had people develop stuff and like, here, look at it. And I'm like, what do I do with it? Like, I don't even know where to start. Like, show me what you did, right? And have it
Hmm.
be a little more of a tutorial and make
Yep.
it a little more practical. And that's where we've seen some benefit where somebody created something and now three other people are using it, right? Now you're starting to scale out the innovation, and it doesn't all have to be trapped inside engineering or in this small group. But you've got to have that sharing mechanism, or you're going to have a suboptimal experience.
Yeah. There's two questions in the
Yeah,
chat.
go ahead.
I'm gonna chuck them into the room for us because I think they're really good. There's one from Mark where he's asking about like they're all chatting on the channel about what we call the work map, and he's
Okay.
asking for more definition. So the clarity of just for folks to know, like what we do at Reejig is we basically give companies an out of the box view of work. And when we say work, we're talking task, subtask. We basically give you like the map of your company so that you can then, GPS your way around and figure out where is the best place to do it. And like me and Ben were talking about, like we're directing you to like things that are worth value to the company. Like, does it save me money? Does it reduce risk if we were to, use AI for this moment? So imagine that that's like step one. And then Doug is asking a question, Ben, where basically when you get to that point, how do you decide what is like leader directed versus team discovered? Like, how do you like, because I've got a cheeky perspective on this that like there's like definitely a point of view that top down, if you're working in a factory, and like one of my best experiences of 2025 was I got to go to the AWS Formula One experience. And
Love
it was
it.
really cool. And
Yes.
I sat there like drinking a glass of champagne, right? And I couldn't
Lovely.
believe that I got to go to this thing. And I was looking at the pit stop of the team. And I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, how do I build that in my company? Like the
Right.
best companies in the world, like how do they put a team together to do that? Because that was like so inspirational for me. I was like, holy moly, like how do I do that in like team? And you can't just have everyone randomly deciding what they want to do in that pit stop moment. That
Nope.
has to be a very clear, leadership approved, optimized moment of like speed and accuracy and energy and like in sync and chemistry with the team. So
Yes.
like there's like that side, but then there is your what you've described also on the other side is that localized team. How do you make the decision on what and when to do what, which one? Like, what do you think about that? Because Doug's question is really good and it feeds off
Yeah.
Mark's question too.
Yeah, I think it starts with how well can you describe the task? If you can describe the task with excruciating detail, because it's repetitive, and how often does the task have to happen? That's also equally
Yep.
important. If it
At
happens
effort
once a
level.
year,
Yeah.
if it happens once a year, don't build AI to do it,
Yep.
right? Like it's just that level of effort is probably not worth it, right? So you want volume and repetition are the areas that I'd draw your attention to. The other thing is it clear what information is coming in and what information needs to go out so that you know what when you have the complete data set in order for AI to go do it, and then you have a test to make sure AI did it correctly, right? And if
Hmm.
you can define those three things, the inputs, the what needs to happen, and the outputs, that to me is ripe for automation, and it's a high volume activity. So, for example, at many small medium businesses, they get invoices that have to get entered into their accounting system, right? And that process is usually manual. Ideally, you don't have to do that, right? You would just take a picture with your phone, you'd send it in, and the system would figure out and categorize it correctly and do everything. And if it didn't know, it'd come back to you, the human, going, "Hey, we have a look," because it didn't follow the rules, right?
Hmm.
It was an exception to the rules that you've given me. Though in this, and it's always been this way with AI, it's all about patterns. If there's a pattern there, then AI is going to excel at that because it can follow the pattern or it can figure out the pattern. where high judgment is required or where there are conflicting things or differences of opinion. I'll tell you a perfect example. We had an organization that had a help desk, they had manuals, they had a relatively complex set of machinery that needed to be fixed. And one manual said to do this, and another manual said to do something that conflicted with the other one. And it was like, which one is right? And the answer was you go back to the humans who've been doing this job for 10 years, and they know which one of those is right.
Yep.
But the rest of the humans had no idea that conflict existed because very few had ever read both manuals to realize at that level of detail that there was a conflict. And so some of what you're describing, right, is using the tools and finding tools that can help you define and map, really allow you to zero in on those high value, high volume areas. And then the opposite is true. If you have low volume, highly complex, right, those are the places where actually you want to spend more energy and you want to free up time so that the humans aren't making rush decisions, right? And that is again where I think you can start to optimize where are we spending our time.
Yeah. And if it's something like connected to paying your people, which is like super high risk, if you get it wrong, you're screwed.
Oh my gosh.
Like
Nothing worse than messing with people's comp.
you avoid the anything connected to customer data. And this is where I think like there's the out of the box tools that are great for kind of like low risk, high value, repetitive work. And then you have complex. Reinventing a call center is not something that you're going to do on an out of the box model. You're going to design that, you're going to build that with your team, you're going to keep that custom on Bedrock or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to be very
Yeah.
specific. And that's where I feel like there's these different points of like, one is like a leader, SI, build it, design it, like really. And a lot of the stuff that I've seen, I mean, my expertise, just so you know, is like workforce optimization. So
Sure.
my brain really thinks clearly about velocity, and like I've been trained to do that. So for me, like AI is this like golden goose. I can't
Oh, you
believe that
gotta
it's
love it.
happened in
You
my
love
life.
it.
I'm like, I can't believe this. Why is no one adopting this? It's amazing. But the reality is when I watch customers right now, and I get to sit in like the coolest rooms right now, I just like listening to folks think through these things, and I get to like see patterns of what's happening. And like just because like you sleepwalked your way into that process, this moment of AI is also this opportunity to like clean the slates, like
Right.
start again, because a lot of why you did stuff was just because it was the way that you did it. And you know, you said the point at the start, once you hire 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, each one of those will incrementally add another layer of task or subtask into a process because that's just what humans do. Busy work kind of inflates things. And I think that's where it becomes like really, really interesting. And then Giuliano in the chat as well. The chat's really good here, by the way. Julianne has also said, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, that there's this other element that I'm starting to see, which I think will be a big thing later this year, is like, let's say I go and redesign how to pay this invoice. By the time we get to the end of the year, these models will be completely evolved and upgraded, and I'm going to probably have to reinvent it again because there's this evolution of just the capability, how fast the AI is growing and the potential of new access. And, you know, right now we're kind of subtask level agents. Really few are at this, like what they, you know, the dream state of like agent full end to end. But I think that's where it's this constant evolution of work is going to be in play where it's not like I'm going to do a transformation program and then I'm going to redesign it and then oh yeah, like that's it, done, wash your hands and on to the next. It's this always evolving and shifting. Like how do you see teams and leaders staying in this new mindset mode? Like how do you like, because it's not like a we're changing it and it's done, right? What's
No.
your kind of take on this?
Yeah, we're trying to, and again, the technical folks have been at it for a while with agile development and trying to be more iterative. We need the business teams to also adjust their thinking on how problems get solved, and not let the pursuit of perfect get in the way of
Mm.
good, and really being able to assess risk, like is this good enough to learn from, and if we iterate fast, it's better to get some value now versus zero and wait. And so having an iterative mindset, these models are going to continue and everything is going to continue to get better. And I think as we build and architect, you're going to need a couple of things. One, you're going to need to have a mental model that what you're building isn't forever. And that's not how we used to build things, right? The software creators before you, built things to last, and they would just add features, and it would just grow and become
Yeah.
this big monolith, right? And gone are those days, right? And I think people can appreciate that. Um, but ultimately, again, that mindset of I need to build into my process the ability to adapt, which means I need a checkpoint to validate, is this still working? Right? And if not, I need a feedback loop to go, why not? And then I need to adapt to the changing, whatever market, customer need, could be compliance, like whatever happens to be. But we've talked about this in the past. It's my fundamental belief that how companies compete is going to change in the AI era, and it will
Hmm.
be predicated on how well do you know your customer and how fast can you adapt to their needs.
Yep.
Because those two things are going to be critical components to being successful. And so you have to have those feedback loops, but then you have to be able to adapt. And not all companies um, have that as a superpower.
Hmm.
It's an opportunity. Some cultures are real resistant to that kind of change, and it's really just trying to, again, back to leadership to go. We need to change how we do things. And if the leadership team, if the board is like, no, you need to change how you do things, now you've got the reason. And now you have to go figure out the how and partner with people who've done it before. Like you've done these maps. It can help people better understand like where to spend their time. We've helped people figure out how to get their data into some place and leverage AI to start to get some insights to give them that point them in the right direction. So there's people who've done this before, and it can help accelerate your learning. But ultimately, it comes down to you, your organization, and what do you want to be known for in two
Yep.
years? Not 10 years, like 2 years. Like what are you going to be known for?
And what action are you going to take? Because I think I got kind of sick of everyone talking about insights last year. I was like, guys, come on. Like, it's like, can we get some, like, let's go. Like, let's get this party started. And I think I have felt, I don't know about you, but there's an energy in the market right now, especially in the US, where it's like, okay, 2026 is action time. Like, there is like a feeling from a leadership perspective that like these transformation theaters around programs and pilots is now like, no, how do we operationalize this and change our operating model to enable this? So I love that you're leaning in on that because we're starting to see a lot of that play out. One of the things that's really helped, and I've seen this play out with my team. So when we get brought in, it's the customers have either they're kind of at all different stages. They're like thinking about it, have tried and failed, kind of don't know what they're doing. Like they're all at different stages, but they all have the same kind of consistent recipe for us where like they need to understand their work, they need to know what AI to use. They need to know how to reinvent the actual workflow for an agent. So we create these like AI workflows. And we used to do these kind of like transformation programs where we would like make it a lot more serious and like, sponsorship and all of this stuff. What we have found as we've shifted this probably in the last maybe 9 to 12 months is we've moved into a different operating model where we're driving customers and seeing a completely different result. So we've moved from this like strict transformation style thing into like stealth change management. So
Good.
what we're basically saying to customers is like there's so much of this air and energy around like big transformations whenever actually if we can reinvent from the ground up and actually do this kind of stealth thing. So by week 4, if our customers haven't, they've made a commit to us that they're deploying 3 AI new workflows by the end of that, and we prove impact like into production, not the shadow AI workflows, like truly in production, moving. We can see like how work was before, how work was after, and prove the value of the investment in the agent themselves, right?
Right.
We are seeing like this appetite for this type of way of working is very much so what the customers are liking from us right now. And I don't know if you see from your perspective, like why do you think that the leaders are now in that? Like we're definitely like seeing like this appetite for let's go like that versus this big kind of theatrical, like
Yeah.
what's your take on that? Because we're starting to see it play out across the board now.
I'm glad to hear you are seeing it, and I hope everybody's taking note, right? So many who are in leadership positions of great big organizations um, have seen many transformation projects before the AI transformation one. And most of them came up short or failed for numerous reasons. And so what you're describing, I love because you're building their confidence,
Yep.
right? This is a trust thing. Right? It gets back to leadership and trust, right? And so the leadership knows change needs to happen. And most organizations' change management practices are woefully under what's the nicest way to say it? Effective,
Safe room.
maybe.
It's a safe room.
Yeah, I mean, again, especially for those change management agents, it's a hard job, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I tell everybody, I've told you this, right? I talk about AI every day, all day long, and the AI, the tech stack, the tech bits is the easy bit.
Yep.
The people,
Completely
the
agree.
culture is the harder bit, and I fully understand that. And it's real, right? Like the culture change, the shift is the harder bit. And and I think ultimately that has been those leaders' experience. So they have scar tissue. The cuts were deep. They spent lots of money, wasted lots of time, didn't get the result. Maybe didn't get their bonus that year. Like, I mean, there's some history and baggage there on the word transformation.
Yep.
And so I think your approach of showing genuine, real progress that's measurable, where they can see a before and after without having to boil the ocean. That's the other
Yep.
thing I'll say is a misconception, right? Is you have lots of folks come in and go, oh, and we see this, like people will admit, raise their hand right away that their data is all over the place. Like it's an
Hmm.
absolute mess, right? And lots of colorful ways you could describe it, but you get my point. The data is all over the place. And they've been told because of the insights and the analytics and the big data, talk for the last 10 years that they have to go solve that before they can have any benefit from AI. And it's simply not true. Like you can get benefit now, it just might be incremental or it might be one workflow or one area, right? But
Hmm.
where we see the biggest bang and the North Star that you want is you do want to have your data accessible. You want a layer of intelligence and you want to create this holistic environment, but you can't start with that, right? If you start with that, you're going to follow the same way of big transformations before.
Yep.
So your approach, you have to have that North Star, which you guys do, right? You're like, no, like this is what good looks like when you're all done, but we're going to start with these three, right? But those three all get you towards the vision, right? And so I think you need both
Hmm.
because if
Yep.
if you don't have the vision, then how do you know those first couple projects are heading in the right direction, right? You've got to have
Yep.
some North Star.
And it has to be accessible for like everyday people. So the
Agreed.
thing is like, and Anna's put it into the chat. And Anna, you're going to poke the bear with me a little bit on this one because I have like a pet peeve around prompt training and just like basically what I see across the board is like everyone rolls out a new way of working. The AI movements come, team. Everyone do your prompt training. And then they suddenly expect employees to know how the hell they're supposed to work, like how do they actually complete their new workflow. Like prompt training is not the answer. The answer is that we need to actually show people, it's not change management, have the common courtesy to give people a view of what their workflow looks like now. Like really simple, if your job is to pay an invoice at Reejig, here is the steps that you must take now to pay that invoice. Like as
Yep.
simple as that sounds. And you know what, no one's doing that, and it's nuts. Like it's like how do you expect people to like adopt, and then they don't want to ask because then they feel like
Yeah.
they're inappropriate, and then they get more afraid of AI. So I think there's this moment with HR people, and like I think there is this opportunity for HR to step in right now. Like
Yeah.
how do we turn traditional HR practices into this like workforce innovation squad, and they sit half in IT and they sit half within HR? Because to be clear, IT don't know how to do this. They know the tools, but they have no idea about work.
Right.
The closest capability to work is actually HR folks. They're the closest in terms of like skill set of like a central place. And you see like skilling and capability teams, and there's job architecture teams. These are all teams that basically sit in the business that have more of the skills than probably most. And I think, the session that you ran was like SVPs of like the biggest companies in the world, and it was HR. And they are sitting in this world where the CIO is saying, we need to do this. We need to figure out how. And there's this coming together moment, kind of like one of our CHRO customers said it's like a COVID moment.
Yeah.
CFO, CIO, CHRO have to buddy up now because
Yeah.
this is not one department. This is like a whole department. And I think the moment where this tooling moment actually becomes a workforce innovation moment is when they're all together. And I think that's where the opportunity, but like if we are simply rolling out tools to the company and telling people to do prompt training and then we're all cranky because the work hasn't got faster, I think we like actually have to get our shit together a little bit on that one because it infuriates me and then all the people feel like they're stupid and that they're
Yeah.
left behind and that they now fear the AI. So
Yeah.
like we're really kind of a bit feisty on that one and I think like a lot of folks that I talk to, it's a courage thing. It's like
Yeah.
that they need you need to take the time just to give them that moment.
You
Like let them have
do.
that moment, right?
I think I think we need to lead with empathy. We have to acknowledge the fear that exists, and we need to listen. This is something new to learn, and everybody learns differently. But I think with encouragement, and you mentioned it, right? HR, there should be incentives. They should make it fun. There should be games or prizes or whatever. We call them hackathons, which is probably poorly named for business people. Hackathons definitely something a little more
Agree.
IT oriented, but you can have innovation days, right? Call it whatever you want. But where you step people through solving a problem and they type the things in and they see what it does. I did one and I had the aha moment where we had somebody walk me through using English words only, creating a chess tutorial application. Right? That's what it was. It was a simple, I love chess and I'd love to learn more about it, but that was the problem I was solving. And I started with English, like, hey, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. And it stepped me through, okay, I want beginner, intermediate, and expert. And then the answer, and you'll love this, was in a terminal window with all letters like back from the 80s. And I'm like, no, 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 I want a web UI that looks pretty. And then all of a sudden I had a chessboard and I can move pieces. And I didn't write a line of code. It
Yep.
it did it all itself, and it allowed me to go, A, see what's possible. B, I did it with English words. And then I was able to go, okay, how could I now that I've built something, right? How can I now think about my job, right? And that was a real innocent way to just follow the bouncing ball, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, we all learn to read somehow, right? And so this is that moment where you don't want it to just be a free for all. You want people to feel safe to ask questions. And here's what I'll say to everybody who's started to use these tools. You are going to have good days and bad days. You're going to have days where you're like, oh my gosh, this was the coolest thing ever. I didn't think it could do it. Wow, I am falling off my chair. And then you're going to have days where you are trying to get the damn thing to do exactly what you want.
Yeah.
It refuses to do what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you have to realize that these things are going to continue to get better and you're going to get frustrated. But it doesn't mean that they don't work or that they can't add value. But it does mean you found an area where they're maybe not as strong. And that's a valuable thing to figure out. But please, everybody listening, don't get frustrated when you hit one of those roadblocks because you're inevitably going to. The other thing I say too is these things are amazing, it appears, at things you don't know anything about. And if you're an expert in something, it's a lot easier to see when they get it wrong,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so most of us ask questions of AI for stuff we don't know, right? And we're now getting pretty dependent, some folks, on those answers and taking them as it's the right thing. And I would say, again, if you haven't done the job of putting your corporate data married up with one of these big models and created a solution so that you have the checks and balances in place, then we need to keep our critical thinking skills and double check that it is the right answer. We still need to validate. There's plenty of press about people taking things and just using it as their work product and getting a quite a
And then charging for it.
yeah, 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 indeed.
And then
You,
getting caught.
you can read up. I won't point any fingers or throw any
Either
shade,
will I.
but
Either
but
will
but
I.
you all can do your own research. But just, I mean, again, please like double check, right? Like
Yeah.
make sure that what you're doing is authentic. These things are incredibly powerful, but we, the humans, still need to be in the loop, making sure and validating. Those checks and balances are absolutely critical.
Yeah, I think there's just this incredible moment in time where anything is possible from a rethinking perspective. It kind of opens up this other kind of first principle, day zero, like when it comes to work redesign, when it comes to just how you as an individual do your work. Like, look at me, like I'm a CEO that like I use AI. I have no clue about a whole pile of stuff. And the point you made is so true. If you trust it too much and you send it to the board,
Yeah,
and then you have to go, oops, sorry about that. Like it's a real thing to just factor in
yeah.
whenever you're operating, right?
I told folks last night, right? I mean, AI is amazing at a first draft of just about anything, right? And we tell people often, especially in the developer community, right? If you're letting AI write code for you or do anything for you, you should treat it like a new hire, right? Like, would you let a new hire put your board prezo together and send it for you without checking it, right? Like, and the answer is obviously no. You would
Uh,
never do that as a human being. You never trust, somebody junior in the organization to do that for you. And so, at the end of the day, I think you need to have that same mental model, right? Check the work, make sure it's good enough, refine it as needed, and here's the other thing I think we're all learning, Sabine, is we're learning to ask better questions, right? And back to prompt engineering. You ask enough questions and you get bad answers, you get better at asking
mhm.
questions, right? And giving the AI tools what we call context, right? So it understands where you're coming from and what you're trying to accomplish. And if you give it better context and not just a straight flat answer, you'll find that you get a richer A, dialogue between you and the system, and B, better outcomes and outputs.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm kind of crap at is the prompting. So I figured out this little hack where I basically just talk and I kind of give it the context and what I'm trying to do and then ask it to create me the perfect prompt for it.
Yeah.
And I have found for someone who's not technical that that's like the quickest like way to get something really valuable. Like the difference between when I was like trying to remember how to prompt and all of it. Now I just kind of talk and just say like this is what I'm trying to do and why and context and like I kind of share and I don't want this and I do want this. And then please create. Well, I stopped saying please when I read that Sam Altman said that it was pointless being polite
Well,
to a
it was costing him
it's
money, is what
costing
it
him
said.
money.
Hang on, let's be clear why he said what he said. It was costing him money. But I still say
Yeah.
please and thank you. I do.
Well, you see, I thought
Um,
like if I get to the point where I'm cracking the whip with like an
yeah,
agent, at what point am I gonna like bring that into my human day to day with my kids and with people at work? If like you forget to, you get so used to not saying please and thank you, you're gonna get to the point where you're just rude. So
yeah,
like it was funny, but even in the prompts, like I was like just basically like voice dictating like what I'm
yeah.
trying to do, and the quality of my prompt and the output now is like so much better.
And it's a way to
Um,
learn, right? If you're reading over the prompt to see what it did, it can help teach you. Again, this is a dialogue. Like we're learning how to speak a new language, if you will,
yeah,
right? And it takes some iteration. So I'm glad you found that
I
little link.
did.
That's a
And I
great.
taught my 7-year-old. So my little 7-year-old Indy, she's dyslexic and she struggles with like reading and
Sure.
writing and things that you would imagine just with that going on with her. So I taught her to do the same thing, watching a 7-year-old say for context, and actually,
I love it. Oh, good for you. Good
and
for her.
you
She's
know what
got to
they
feel so
did?
empowered, I bet.
Oh my God, it's amazing. So last Sunday, and I've been working a lot. So I'm a bit like of a distant mother right now, which is kind of crap, but just the reality of like my business is going very well and things are good. So I got like first world problems. But they are like kind of the two girls are like pottering. So I've taught them how to do this. And we live in an apartment and they're like on a Sunday, we're going to go and design a business. And they're sitting prompting and asking for ideas. They set up in the lobby and ask the guys at the lobby, like, are we allowed to stay? They go down for an hour and they make $20 selling things. And I'm like, shut up. Like, that is like the
Little
coolest. So,
entrepreneurs. They got your
right?
DNA. I love it.
Right? So
Yeah.
imagine like all of our children are going to be AI first.
Yes.
Like imagine if we adopt this skill and then if we teach and create like flexibility in our homes where we also are seen to do it. Like imagine what their careers are going to be like. Like I can't even imagine if a 7-year-old can make $20 in an hour. Like
So
it's crazy.
I was talking to somebody last night, and he with his kids vibe coded a game, and then the whole family played the game.
I love
They were
this.
having just
I
a
love
ball,
this.
and they were
I love
about your
this.
kids' age, maybe a little older, but not in middle school yet, right? And I'm just like, how wonderful as parents to start exposing and piquing their curiosity. Like that's what you want for your kids is to actually learn to love to learn, right? And
Hmm.
solve problems, to be able to identify a problem and be able to learn how to solve problems, incredible skills that will pay them huge dividends throughout life. And then for the rest of us who aren't going to be AI native because we've been on this planet for a while,
Hmm.
this is an opportunity to tap into our creativity because folks
Yep.
who didn't learn how to code can now do things that they couldn't do before. And that to me, like, I think these tools are going to tap into our creativity, both on the job and potentially outside of the job, right? Where you got a side hustle and you're like, I'm going to build a mobile app, and I went
Hmm.
and described it in English, and now I have an app on the App Store, and two people have downloaded it. And then you realize that, all right, now you need to learn how to market. Now you need to learn how to create awareness, and now you need to learn how to run a business. And I think tapping into that creativity as a human race is nothing but good for us.
Yeah. I think one of my 2026 big goals, like, when you're building a company, it's like you tend to have revenue targets and all of the things that how it works with startups. But I was like, on the other side, like I've got this like be really bold, but also be really responsible. I don't want to be on the side of history that's harvesting people out of jobs, just for the record.
Yeah.
I want to be on the side of history that was like part of like a completely different thing. And for us, like one of my personal goals is like, how do I use everything that I now know? And how do I like, with all due respect to the technical folks, like they've got this in terms of the knowledge, but how do we like create a world where that opportunity has access for anybody? Like,
Right.
and that we can create like builders, like anyone can be a builder. And I think a lot of what we did together in our partnerships with AWS is all about building the builders. Like
Yes.
how do we create that world where like anyone, and I think you're very like from a like heart perspective and empathy are very similar to my vision of
Good.
like the human is like the critical component here. Like obviously we
Absolutely.
want to make things faster and we got to prove value and stuff, but the reality is like there's this crazy opportunity for everybody, and
Quality of
just
life. Quality of
it's
life. Yes.
right.
We say often and believe, right, that part of our role is to help democratize access to these tools, right? The cloud, like you used to have have a data center before you could do anything meaningful with technology, right? And gone are those days. So if you just look at the founding of AWS and kind of how we came to be, it really was trying to create access to these incredibly powerful tools and not just be for those Fortune 50,
Hmm.
100 that can afford it, right? And so democratizing is absolutely something that we feel very strongly about, but also training, right? So making training. I heard today that the UK is going to train every citizen, right? And or make it
Hopefully not a
available.
prompt training.
Make it available, but it's 20-minute nuggets, right? And
Yeah.
you get to learn how to build your confidence. But I do think access is important.
Yep.
And I do think like we need to help people understand. And I had two conversations this week with people I used to work with, not technical at all, no AI. They don't do it on a regular basis. And I said, please just put one of the assistants on your phone and just start asking it questions. Like
Yep.
just get started. Ask it to you're going on a trip, like ask it to plan your itinerary or give you restaurant reviews or like just start asking it questions so that you can start to get more comfortable. And as you do, you'll get more and more sophisticated and you'll learn what it can and can't do. But like to me, I can't stress enough, like
Hmm.
nobody's got more than a 2-year head start on on you, right? Like and anybody, right? And this stuff is changing so fast, right? That if anybody says they know all of it, I
Hmm.
would argue that perhaps they might not be telling the full truth.
Don't buy whatever they're selling.
It's just, and here's the other thing, just from a very empathetic point of view, like like there's so much change going on. that it is overwhelming or it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And we just need to give each other some grace and go, just learn as much as you can, learn as fast as you can. But right now, like that's the big moral of the story is start using it. Find people who can help you learn faster is a great way to accelerate what you're trying to do. But have a goal in mind, your approach. Like there has to be value, or you shouldn't do it. Like otherwise, you're just
Hmm.
wasting time, and nobody has extra time.
Yep, agreed. I know we're at time, but I've got one more quick question for you.
Love
So
it.
we've talked a lot about where we're at today and kind of like the coming up, but like where do you see the big, like what's the next big thing coming that we got to keep an eye on? Like what are we all not sort of aware of that we should be thinking through when it comes to AI?
So we made some announcements this summer, and I love the company I work with because we're always thinking ahead of the problems that are going to be. And certainly we're reactive when we take customer feedback. We're always trying to anticipate, and often we're trying to solve our own problems because that's where we're at in the learning curve. We have a vision of there being, millions and billions of agents doing varieties of work, and that creates solutions to certain problems. It also creates new problems, right? Which is orchestration, monitoring, authentication. How do you evaluate when the agent is no longer doing what you wanted it to do? Like, how do you know when it's not? Like, how do you double check? So there is a monitoring, governance, security, like all of these agents. I mean, if you watched any news about Claudebot or Moltbot now,
Hmm.
like, woo, it's great. Like, look what it could do. And then all of a sudden, like an hour later, it was like somebody took over my machine and is sending out emails on my behalf. And I'm like, what did you think was going to happen? Right?
Yeah.
So we have to go forward like with security, data protection, like scalability. Like there's some just must-haves when it comes to running an organization of scale and size that are just expected, right? And we can't lose sight of those things in the AI era, those still hold true. And so we're trying to make it easier to evaluate models, evaluate agents, be able to see which ones are better, what the cost profile is, so that you can constantly be adjusting and evaluating. Authentication, right? So it's you and I authenticate when we go in the machine. Well, when the machine's talking to the machine, who's authenticating?
Yeah, yeah, true,
and
true, true.
and what should it be
Mm-hmm.
allowed to do and on whose behalf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so cascading that rights and data protection, beyond just the human,
Yeah.
is really important. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to solve a lot of things, and then we're going to learn that there are new problems. I don't think there'll be fewer problems in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We're we're wonderful at finding new ones, right? And so those are the challenges that are before all of us.
I love it. I love talking to you. I love your energy. I love just where your brain goes in these conversations. And I love that at a moral level, we're actually very in sync. So Ben, thank you. I know how busy you
Sure.
are. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to get you here to talk live to everyone. For the folks that are on the Peloton or walking the dog, thank you so much
Keep
for
going. You can
listening
do it.
to, yeah, exactly. Speed us up to
There you go.
1.5. To everyone online as well, thank you so much, folks. My team have put in the channel as well. If anyone wants to, find out more information about Reejig and what we're doing, or get access to some free data to do some job analysis, let us know. We can send that over as well. And thank you to everyone. See you later, Ben.
Always a pleasure. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Take care. Bye, team.